In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Hades 2. It just went into early access yesterday on Steam. This is to be expected. We mentioned that on our community page the other day that the technical test had wrapped up. We were expecting the early access sometime soon, so it's right on schedule. And in this video, I want to go over what my impressions are having played it, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, how it compares to the first game, and maybe get into a little discussion about whether it's worth buying in early access or waiting until it's finished. So first, let's talk a little bit about the story and setting. I don't want to go into too many spoilers because this is a big part of the game, but I just want to mention that you are playing as Melinoe, who is the sister of Zagreus. Zagreus obviously was the protagonist in the first Hades, and you are on a quest for revenge to some horrible things that have happened to your family, and the goddess Hecate is kind of helping you to accomplish that in an area of the game that's your hub called the Crossroads. And the format of the game obviously remains very, very similar. You're playing through the game in a similar manner as you progress. You unlock more and more things, more story elements happen, and it's very, very familiar if you played Hades. It unfolds very much the same way, which is absolutely fantastic. They have not changed a lot here in terms of their storytelling and game design, so if you really liked Hades, which in my opinion was a phenomenal game, one of my favorite games, honestly, then you'll be right at home here knowing that, not a whole lot has changed mechanically. There are some additions, though, like you use mana to cast spells and use charged up special abilities instead of bloodstones. So that's a resource that you have to manage as you explore, and you can replenish that in many ways. There are perks you can get that will give that to you, or armor, or you can pick up orbs on the landscape, or there are little nodes you can loot that give you mana. But it is something that doesn't just replenish naturally on its own. You have to sort of go out of your way to manage this so that it makes it more strategic when to use charged up special attacks or casts rather than your regular versions of those. And in terms of the gods and goddesses from the first game, it seems like the vast majority of them have returned. I don't know if all of them are going to be in the game. The game is not obviously complete yet. They have mentioned in their roadmap, which I'll go through in a little bit of detail later, that there are going to be more characters and powers added to the game. So I don't know if all the gods are in there. I haven't seen them all just yet, but it is likely that most of them, if not all of them, will be. And obviously, as you traverse through the areas and you gain power-ups, you're going to get to choose from 3 just like the first game. And it seems like the power-ups so far in this game are not as interesting as the first game, in my opinion. Now, it could just be that I haven't seen them all, and obviously they mentioned they're going to add more. But I feel like the first game had better powers in terms of putting builds together. But I have a lot more hours in that game than I have in this game, and again, that's from the full version of that game. So it's likely that some of this will change and the powers will get tweaked over time. They'll be more interesting closer to launch, be better tuned, etc. And there are a handful of weapons to choose from. Obviously, this is a big part of Hades, and these weapons are different than the ones that Zagreus used in the first game. So you'll have to master all of them again, which is great. And it doesn't take very long to unlock them. You just need to acquire a certain amount of materials for each one. Obviously, each one has a different amount. Some of them require more materials from later areas of the game. So you'll be unlocking these continuously as you play through. They did mention that they will be adding another weapon later on in their roadmap, so there's at least one more weapon coming. I don't know if there's more than that, but you can expect at least one more. And obviously all of these weapons have, different upgrades that they can get that change the way their regular attacks and specials upgrade when you pick up the hammer things. So, you can look forward to that as well. Trying to put together your builds and figure out how to best utilize each weapon was a big part of Hades, and that remains the same in this game as well. Graphically, it feels like the game is even prettier than the first game. I don't know if it's just me, because frankly the art of the first game was fantastic, but visually, fidelity-wise, it feels like there's even higher resolution. Maybe I'm just making that up. I don't know. It just feels that way to me, like the game has more depth. It feels like when you're looking at it, it has the same art style from the first game, which is absolutely phenomenal. Huge part of what made Hades Hades. But it just feels like they've even improved upon the quality of it, and I really love the look of Hades 2. And obviously, music plays a huge part in Hades, as well as voice acting. Both of those so far have been extremely top-notch. The music is kind of like a slight variant of the theme from the first game in places, which I really like. And the voice acting for the gods and goddesses and characters of the game is absolutely excellent. One thing I want to mention is that Amelia Tyler plays Hecate, and she's one of the main characters of this story, kind of being at your home base, guiding you through the game. And she is the narrator in Baldur's Gate 3, and she's absolutely fantastic so far in this game. So if you loved her voice from Baldur's Gate 3 as the narrator, you're going to be right at home in this game. And there are so many different throwback things to the first game that I really love. They didn't change much of the formula, as I mentioned earlier. They have Artemis out there helping you on the landscape, like attacking enemies, which is great, which is kind of like a new little addition, but is not too much different than the first game. You have the version of Skelly there to kind of train you when you want to like train and work on your skills, which is great, with a similar voice actor, if not the same voice actor. It sounds very similar. And there are all these things like, in the Crossroads that, you can upgrade it and purchase things from the vendor and stuff like that. So a lot of throwbacks to Hades 1, and I really, really like that. Now, as I mentioned, they have a roadmap in the game outlining that the early access is going to last at least through 2024. So that's at least, 8 months, because it's the beginning of May. And it probably longer than that, I would guess. I don't think it's going to be January 1st and it launches or anything. And that they're going to have a major update for the game later this year. So it's not going to go into full release later this year, but they will get some content update later this year. They didn't give an exact time frame for that, but there will be a major patch that adds new stuff to the game later on. Now, the first game was in early access for a very, very long time, and I'm not expecting Hades 2 to be in early access as long, because they know what people like from the first game, so they're probably trying to stick close to that. And they have new variables and the weapons and different powers and things like that, and level design, etc. So they're going to be, probably tweaking this as they get feedback from people in early access, but it's probably not going to need nearly as much tweaking as the original game needed. So even though the game is going to be in early access throughout 2024, I think there's a really good chance that it releases sometime in 2025, probably Q1, Q2. I don't think it's going to be all the way at the end of 2025 or anything like that. I think we're looking at probably a year in early access, and it should be pretty close to getting ready to be, ready to launch. So those things being said, it's kind of led me to the question, which is, do you play Hades 2 now, or do you wait for full version of the game or some point down the line? And even though I've been really, really enjoying the game, because of the way Hades is designed and failure is built into Hades, into the storytelling of the game, like things happen when you die, it makes me really wonder, are you going to get the most out of this if you play it now and go through a chunk of the story, even though some of the story is going to be added later, or maybe, other details are added, but it doesn't really change the whole story, and, missing a weapon, missing powers, missing whole areas of the game. Do you want to replay that, or do you want to stop playing and then try and remember what was going on when you pick this up at release and get back into it? So this is something that I've really been asking myself, and it's really hard to come up with a good answer. As far as early accesses go, Hades 2 is in a really good shape right now, and it's definitely fun to play. Didn't run into any issues while I was playing, and I think, it's a very, very enjoyable experience. So it's hard to recommend against playing it in that front, but I do think because of the way the game is designed, and a lot of this game is that story unfolding as you're playing, I don't want people to miss out on some of the story, or as I mentioned, have to put the game down and wait for it to be finished, or for other things to be added and then play it again at launch of the game and see what's changed, and either have to do the story again, or because one of the things is they didn't mention that saves would be compatible at 1.0. They said that they're trying their best to make sure that they are, but they did not guarantee that that's going to be the case. So it's possible that even if you play a bit and then go, okay, I want to wait to do the rest of it until full launch, you might have to start another playthrough, and I don't know how many people are going to want to do that. I mean, Hades is a great game, so I don't think a ton of people are going to care to go through the story again, or at least part of the story again. So if you don't mind doing the story, a second time, I definitely recommend playing now. But if you're someone who wants one complete full experience, getting all there is out of the story, again, Hades is made to be played through multiple times, but assuming you play through it many, many times and get through the full story, do you want to get 2/3 of the way through that and then start over later? I don't know if that's something you'd want to do or not. So you kind of got to weigh that out for yourself. I think for me, I will probably play a little bit, familiarize myself with it, and probably wait for the full game to come out to really dive into it, just to get the fully polished, fully done experience, because it's going to be amazing. I mean, Supergiant did absolutely fantastic with Hades. It won so many awards. A lot of people thought it deserved Game of the Year, and, it definitely was in the conversation for it. So I can't wait to see what they do with this, and it's going to be a tough decision for people. But the quality of the game is there, the value of the game is there. There's no question about that. It's just simply because of the way this game plays doesn't make sense in early access, and I think that's a question everyone has to answer for themselves. So for those of you out there that are playing Hades 2, what do you make of it so far? Are you enjoying it as much as I am? Really loving it so far. For those of you who haven't picked it up yet, are you going to pick it up at some point? Are you going to wait for full launch of the game? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.